To end the wars, I offered myself in marriage to Wu Jing, my childhood sweetheart from the beast tribes. My husband, the Wolf King, with his untamed strength, pinned me to the grasslands, taking me for 3 days and 3 nights, until I passed out from exhaustion. I thought Wu Jing loved me, but later, it was he who personally led 100,000 beast soldiers, their iron hooves trampling the city of Chang'an. He forced my head to turn, making me watch as my father emperor was torn apart by wolves, his head ripped from his body. My brother, the crown prince, was cut down from his horse and ground into a pulp. Those barbarians stripped my mother empress bare, humiliating her until her legs were drenched in blood. Wu Jing smiled as he asked me, his eyes devoid of any emotion, "Qin Yu, did you really think you were so beautiful you could capture my heart? Your imperial family slaughtered so many of my people. Did you truly think that sending just one of you could erase a blood feud of that magnitude?" In the end, Wu Jing conquered the world and took a beloved empress. I was confined by him to the cold palace, without name or title. Every time I attempted to take my own life, he would dig up a corpse from the imperial tombs and grind its bones to dust before my eyes. "You are not allowed to die without my command." I stopped struggling. In any case, there were only 3 days left until the goo worms I had swallowed to save him years ago would finally kill me. At the empress's birthday banquet, Wu Jing made an exception and let me out of the cold palace. My eyes reddened as I looked at the woman on the high platform, wearing a phoenix crown with iridescent wings. It had belonged to my mother. "Insolent slave, how dare you not kneel before His Majesty and Her Majesty?" Someone kicked me hard. My knees slammed onto the ground, my forehead touching the floor as I performed a numb salute. Wu Jing did not tell me to rise. His face was expressionless. "Qin Yu, you were half an incense stick's time late. Was that a deliberate show of disrespect to Wanner? This slave deserves death." I kowtowed again. I didn't explain that with my crippled legs. It took at least 2 hours to walk from the cold palace. A sneer flashed across Wu Jing's face. "You've certainly learned to be obedient." After all, the last time I was disobedient, he had locked me in a cage with wild beasts and drained half my blood to quench their thirst. As I lay dying, he had then ordered his men to find rare treasures to barely keep me alive. "Sister, please get up. You were once a cherished, high-born princess. Even if the Qin kingdom has fallen, you shouldn't really think of yourself as a lowly slave," Shen Wanner said, personally helping me up, her kind words stabbing at my most painful wounds. Noticing the wolf tooth bracelet on my wrist, her eyes flashed with admiration. She said she liked it very much and wanted it as a birthday gift. I glanced at Wu Jing. He showed no reaction. He had given it to me years ago. It was an ancestral treasure of his tribe, each wolf tooth a fine medicinal herb, imbued with a timeless, exotic fragrance. Wearing it long-term was said to soothe pain and prolong life. I had been frail and sickly since childhood. When he gave it to me, he had said he hoped I would live a long, healthy, and peaceful life. Since Her Majesty likes it, how could this slave refuse? I slipped it from my wrist and placed it in Shen Wanner's hand. I looked away, but I faintly heard the sound of a wine cup being knocked over from the high platform. Shen Wanner played with the bracelet, a satisfied smile on her face. "Oh, right. I remember that sister was once hailed for a dance that could move all of Chang'an. Why not take this opportunity to perform for everyone?" I numbly endured the malicious, spectating gazes from across the banquet hall. There were generals from the beast tribes, and there were the traitors who had colluded with them, opening the gates of the Qin kingdom. But I had no right to refuse. A bowl of hot soup, fresh from a copper pot, was thrown at me, instantly scalding off a layer of skin. "What are you standing there for? A remnant of a fallen dynasty still daring to put on a princess's airs? You're lucky to be left with your worthless life. Don't be ungrateful." As if I couldn't feel the pain, I rose onto my toes. I became a dancer for their amusement. The customs of the grasslands were liberal, and the barbarians, still not satisfied, began to jeer, telling me to take off my clothes. Wu Jing's gaze, cold and dark, fell upon me from afar. It was a silent permission. I bit my lip and began to untie my sash. The fabric was stuck to my skin, and tearing it away left me a bloody mess. Piece by piece, I stripped myself naked in the Golden Throne Hall, a place filled with countless beautiful memories of my past. Tears finally fell. I was only allowed to stop when the banquet ended. Wu Jing, reeking of wine, walked toward me. His cold fingertips brushed against the wet tracks on my face, wiping away a tear. His voice, however, was merciless. "Qin Yu, are you deliberately playing the victim in front of me? This slave would not dare. But as the words left my lips, my old ailment flared up. I coughed up blood in front of him, feeling as if my very organs were about to be expelled. Wu Jing sidestepped in disgust, the mockery on his face deepening. I've seen this sickly act of yours for 10 years. Aren't you tired of pretending yet? I once thought he hated women from the Central Plains, hated my delicacy and weakness. But all these years, he had been so attentive to Shen Wanner. If Shen Wanner so much as frowned, the imperial physicians would be kneeling at her door, awaiting orders. The goo worms gnawed at me. My body trembled, and cold sweat beaded on my forehead. Just before I fainted, I thought I saw a flash of panic in Wu Jing's eyes. He gritted his teeth and said, "Qin Yu, I won't let you die so easily. You must live to atone for your sins." But I could never finish atoning. In 2 more days, I would be dead for certain. When I woke the next day, the burns on my body had been treated. I realized with a start that this was not the cold palace, but the emperor's bedchamber. I remembered when Father Emperor was still alive, he would often hold me and my brother, the crown prince, here as he taught us to read and write. Mother Empress would bring in osmanthus cakes she had made herself, but I could no longer recall what they tasted like. "You're awake." Wu Jing approached, his face a mask. He pinched my chin and poured a bowl of incredibly bitter, blood-enriching medicine into my mouth. His grip was strong, and I choked, my eyes turning red. "Qin Yu, don't look at me with those pathetic eyes." Wu Jing sneered. "Even if your hands are clean, even if you never stain them with the blood of my people, you are not innocent simply by being born into the imperial family. On the day the kingdom fell, he had killed every last person with Qin imperial blood. He didn't even spare the fully formed fetus in my womb, his own flesh and blood. He left only me. I didn't understand. Was this love or was it hate? It must be hate. That's why he later made me soak for entire nights in a cold pool filled with musk. He wanted to destroy my ability to have children. He didn't want me to bear his child. He found me, my bloodline, to be filthy. I wiped the medicinal liquid from the corner of my mouth. Before I could speak, a servant's joyous report came from outside. "Your Majesty, the imperial physician has found the empress to be with child." Wu Jing's expression froze, then his voice filled with excitement. "Are you serious? Wanner is pregnant." I stared blankly, watching the joy of a first-time father appear on his face. Perhaps the goo worms had started to bite again. My hand subconsciously clutched my chest. It hurt so much. I had originally planned to die alone in the cold palace when the poison finally took me. But Wu Jing just had to order me to serve Shen Wanner at this very moment. He knew exactly how to torture me in the cruelest way. Killing a person was a simple matter, but he wanted me to watch with my own eyes as another woman bore his children. While our child, he had personally carved from my womb, and to this day it lay buried on the back hill, a lonely grave unworthy of even a tombstone. Shen Wanner smiled at me gently. "Sister, you are of noble birth. His Majesty has asked you to serve me, but I can't very well have you do rough work. Just sweep up the fallen blossoms in the front courtyard." I picked up the broom and looked at the courtyard full of peach blossoms. The other palace maids shot me disdainful looks, their tones contemptuous. "A princess of a fallen dynasty. She's lucky to be left to rot in the cold palace. Our lady is too kind," still calling her sister. "What noble birth? She's worse than the lowest concubine, long since abandoned by His Majesty. If I were her, I'd be too ashamed to keep clinging to life." A red, allergic rash began to form on my skin. I took a ragged breath and suddenly felt a warm liquid trickle from my nose. I reached up to touch it and froze. "Ah!" Seeing my face covered in blood, Shen Wanner feigned a great shock. When Wu Jing rushed over, he slapped me without a word. The force sent me sprawling to the ground amidst a flurry of peach petals. I started to cough. "Wanner cannot stand the smell of blood right now. Are you deliberately trying to harm her?" His eyes were like daggers of ice. "Just because your child is dead, you want to take revenge on others. Qin Yu, have you forgotten what happens when you're disobedient?" How could I dare to forget? I endured the itching of my skin and the gnawing pain in my lungs, prostrating myself on the ground to admit my fault. "It is this lowly slave's fault. It is this lowly slave's fault. I beg your Majesty's mercy. My mother's bones have already been whipped by you until they are unrecognizable. My father's and brother's graves have been burned to ashes. Your Majesty, I have nothing left." Wu Jing crouched down and tilted my chin up. He said with a cold smile, "Who said you have nothing left? Isn't there still one buried on the back hill?" I gripped his hand tightly, my eyes crimson. I'm begging you, Wu Jing. Don't do that, you can't." I couldn't remember the last time I had called him by his name. Wu Jing's eyes were downcast, his emotions swirling within them. I couldn't read them. I only thought he was hesitating, so I continued to kowtow and plead. Thud, 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 until the ground was stained a vivid red, brighter than the peach blossoms. Blood streamed from my nose, I coughed up blood, and I even cried tears of blood. Wu Jing belatedly realized that the amount of blood I had lost in the past 2 days was too much. He frowned and asked a bystander, what rough labor was she doing in the courtyard to end up like this? Your Majesty, Her Majesty was considerate of the former princess and only had her do the light work of sweeping fallen flowers. All the servants in the palace can attest to this. Wu Jing immediately let go of me and sneered. Qin Yu, you're having another one of your fits, aren't you? You've had this strange illness for years anyway. Since it won't kill you, you can just endure it. I watched him step over me and enter the hall without a backward glance. I let out a very, very soft breath. I curled into a ball, motionless, until the night grew cool and peach blossoms covered my body. Candlelight flickered inside the hall, and Shen Wanner's coquettish voice drifted out. Your Majesty, you mustn't, I'm still with child. Oh, you, since your Majesty desires it so, you must promise to be gentle. Shadows played across the window paper. I silently watched them entangle themselves for the entire night. I suddenly remembered my wedding night with Wu Jing. There was no ceremony, no ritual. He simply pinned me to the grasslands, under the open sky, fierce and savage. I thought it was the custom of his tribe, and swallowed all my grievances. But later, at his grand coronation of the Empress, I finally understood. He treated Shen Wanner with such cherish and respect. The wind seemed to blow through my empty chest. Dawn was breaking. This was the final day. Wu Jing, I'm going to die. The Qin imperial family you hate so much will soon be completely extinct. Congratulations. The palace door suddenly pushed open. The man walked out and looked down at me. I told you to serve Wanner. Is this how you slack off? Someone had just come to report that Wu Jing had to attend to state affairs, telling me to hurry up and serve the Empress in her bath. When I carried the water in, Shen Wanner's face was flushed. When we were alone, the look she gave me was one of undisguised provocation. All pretense dropped. Our eyes met. I mouthed 2 words at her. I called her a traitor. Shen Wanner wasn't angry. She smiled, looking my pathetic state up and down. Qin Yu, you're still the same as ever. You get a terrible rash whenever you touch peach blossom pollen. She had been my closest friend, from a general's family. My father emperor had always trusted and respected General Shen. I never imagined that the first to betray us when the kingdom fell would be the Shen family. I still remembered when I was first locked in the cold palace, Shen Wanner came to visit me in private. She told me. A fortune teller said that a daughter of the Shen family is born with a noble destiny. She is meant to be an empress. It's a shame your father emperor and crown prince brother were so uncooperative. So that was the reason for their betrayal. Shen Wanner took out the wolf tooth bracelet again, showing it off to me. The taste of 10,000 goo devouring your heart isn't pleasant, is it? You probably don't know this, but 10 years ago, even though you were the one who saved Wu Jing in the Xunyu forest, why was he so cold to you when he returned? Because he thought I was the one who saved him. After saying this, Shen Wanner waited to enjoy my look of shock and pain. But my expression didn't change at all. What lay between Wu Jing and me was the hatred between nations, a sea of blood. What could a single act of saving his life possibly offset? I gave a scornful laugh. If I had known, I would have let him die in that Xunyu forest. A cold laugh came from behind me. I turned instinctively. Wu Jing's hand was on my neck, his gaze chilling. Qin Yu, you hate me that much. Do you think I truly can't bring myself to kill you? The hand that had once caressed every inch of my skin was now clamped tightly around my throat. I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. From my dead, placid eyes, Wu Jing understood. I was daring him. If he had the guts, he should just choke me to death. Wu Jing's brow furrowed, and he threw me aside heavily. Death is too easy for you, Qin Yu. I want you to live in agony for the rest of your life. He brought another bowl of boiled medicine, bitter and foul-smelling. I had lost count of how many bowls I had drunk over the years. He was afraid I would actually die from blood loss, but he didn't want me to have it easy. I took the bowl and drank it all in one go in front of him. Wu Jing's eyes were dark and unreadable. I used to be so afraid of bitterness. The first time he brought me this medicine, I knocked it over and refused to drink, stubborn as could be. As a result, every time after that, Wu Jing had to force my mouth open and pour it down my throat. Qin Yu, if you continue to be this obedient, I might consider. Wu Jing paused, turning his head to the side, reluctantly erecting a tombstone for that child. My eyelashes trembled. That was his child too. Yet even giving him a tombstone was a reluctant consideration. You will kneel in the courtyard today and reflect on your misdeeds. This is your punishment for frightening Wanner and upsetting her pregnancy. Around noon, a wolf's howl suddenly echoed from outside. At Shen Wanner's birthday banquet 2 days ago, a general from the beast tribes had gifted her a small wolf cub from Zizhu. Wolves love the smell of blood. My heart sank. I had just looked up when the agile figure was already pouncing on me. By the time Shen Wanner came running over, pretending to stop it, several chunks of my flesh had already been torn away. Shen Wanner called back her wolf pet, feigning guilt. His Majesty only just taught me how to command beasts. I'm not yet skilled, and that's why I've hurt sister. I truly deserve to die. Your Majesty, you are the Empress. Why apologize to a lowly slave? Even if she were eaten clean by that beast, His Majesty would not blame you, her personal maid said indignantly. Their voices sounded as if they were coming from a great distance. My vision was a sea of red. I couldn't see or hear anything clearly. I remembered that my father emperor had also died in the jaws of a wolf. An adult Zizhu wolf was massive, large enough to bite off a man's head. My body was trembling, but I couldn't feel any pain. Qin Yu, Anan. Someone was calling my pet name over and over again by my ear, their voice low and strained. It had been so long since I had heard that name. In a blur, I saw black dragon robes. I grabbed his sleeve, my hands covered in blood, and cried out with tears, "Father Emperor." The voice stopped. When I regained consciousness, my mouth was filled with that familiar bitter taste. I opened my eyes and saw Wu Jing's face extremely close to mine. He was feeding me medicine mouth to mouth. Realizing what was happening, I turned my head away in resistance. Wu Jing froze, his fingers tightening around the medicine bowl. Qin Yu, since you're awake, drink the medicine yourself. I pushed myself up and, as he wished, drank every last drop. But the next second, I threw it all up, along with black blood and several small, writhing, grotesque larvae. Wu Jing's expression changed drastically. He looked at me, his eyes filled with confusion, then panic, which finally turned into an angry interrogation. Qin Yu, what trick are you playing now? The sky outside was dark. I knew my time had come. I said, Your Majesty, I am going to die. I forbid it. Wu Jing was about to threaten me with our child's remains again, but he suddenly found himself unable to speak. He saw blood streaming from my 7 orifices, staining the entire bedding red. Peach blossom petals drifted in through the window on the wind. He also saw the red rashes under my collar and sleeves. His trembling gaze moved back to my face, only to find that my eyes had closed forever. Without even a single goodbye, Wu Jing stood there, dazed and at a loss. He tried to console himself, telling himself I was just asleep, but there was so much blood. He could no longer deceive himself. He finally reacted, his voice a hoarse roar. Someone summon the imperial physicians. For the first time in all these years, when I was injured, he called for the imperial physicians to diagnose me personally, instead of just dismissing it with a bowl of medicine. Speaking of which, the effects of those medicines were truly excellent. They always managed to pull me back from the brink of death, and my wounds healed with incredible speed. Unfortunately, that was all on the surface. After the imperial physician took my pulse, he immediately knelt on the ground and begged for forgiveness. Your Majesty, the former princess's body has long been depleted of qi and blood. This humble servant is powerless to save her. Wu Jing was furious. Nonsense. I have fed her so many nourishing and restorative things over the years. Ginseng, snake gall, even 100-year-old Lingjai mushrooms. How could she be depleted of qi and blood? Are you all colluding to deceive me? The imperial physician kowtowed repeatedly. This humble servant would not dare to deceive your Majesty. Every word I have spoken is the truth. Crash! Wu Jing overturned a nearby table, his eyes cold as he enunciated each word. Get every single person from the Imperial Medical Academy here now. If you can't cure her, you will all accompany Princess Anning in death. Anning was my title. It carried the hopes of my father emperor and mother empress for me. A life of peace and serenity. But my life had never been smooth. I remembered back then in the Xuniu forest, Wu Jing had been ambushed and lay unconscious from his severe injuries. I carried him on my back, stumbling step by step, trapped in the mist-filled woods, unable to find a way out or any food. I could only feed him my own blood. At my most desperate moment, I met a traveling shaman. He said he had a pill that could bring the dead back to life, and it could save Wu Jing. I knelt excitedly and begged him for it, saying I was willing to pay any price. The shaman glanced at me and took out a bag. I don't want gold or silver, nor power or status. I only want you to test a poison for me, to try a new medicine. I froze, looking down at the contents of the bag. Horrifying goo worms twisted and crawled inside, even devouring each other. The shaman said, "Eat them, and I will agree to save your beloved." I was silent for a moment. I was terrified of insects. The shaman put the bag away and was about to turn and leave. My hand, hidden in my sleeve, moved, touching the wolf tooth bracelet. I stopped the shaman and asked, "If I eat them, will I die?" The shaman nodded. "You will die, but not so quickly. 10 years at the least, 20 or 30 at the most. It's actually quite a long life, just perhaps a bit more painful." I no longer hesitated. I snatched the bag, closed my eyes, and swallowed everything inside. Then I said, feigning ease, "Actually, I was born with a sickly constitution. A physician once predicted that my life would be shorter than most, so it seems there's no real difference." Those goo worms entered my body, fed on my flesh and blood, and multiplied to this day. I remember before he left, the shaman gave me one last look and sighed, "Fool. I think I really was a fool." After that, Wu Jing's attitude toward me suddenly changed, a cold indifference seeping from his very bones. I knew it was because the Qin kingdom and Zizhu were at war. As a hostage, Wu Jing was left in enemy territory, hearing one piece of bad news after another about his people from afar. How could he not feel resentment? How could he not feel hate? The final result was, Zizhu was defeated, ceding territory and tens of thousands of cattle and sheep, and had to pay tribute every month. Once this unequal treaty was signed, Wu Jing was allowed to return. The day he left, I chased him to the gates of Chang'an. "Princess Anning, please go no further." Wu Jing looked back at me, his eyes filled with a dark complexity I couldn't understand. "The next time we meet, we will be enemies." "No," I shook my head stubbornly. "We won't be, Ah Jing, we are not enemies." Zizhu and Qin could also turn from enemies to friends. All I had to do was marry him. I had read many history books with my brother, the crown prince, and had heard of cases of princesses marrying for peace. When I knelt in the great hall and voiced my thoughts, Father Emperor scolded me for being absurd. Historically, only defeated nations sent princesses to marry for peace. Mother Empress lovingly stroked my long hair and told me, "Annan, your father emperor is very strong, and your crown prince brother is also very strong. We do not need to sacrifice your marriage, now or in the future. You should marry the man you love." But I said the man I loved was Wu Jing. Ever since I first saw him at the tribute ceremony, when I was 8 years old, that foreign youth from the grasslands of Zizhu had been deeply imprinted on my heart ever since. On the hunting grounds, he surpassed my brother, the crown prince, to win first place. After Father Emperor rewarded him, he smilingly asked what he planned to do with the fine snow fox pelt he had hunted. A slight smile played on Wu Jing's lips. He said, "I'll have it made into a cloak for Princess Anning." He was so gentle then. Because of my frail health, I was always under strict supervision. I envied his freedom, his dash, his wild spirit. I was uncontrollably drawn to him. The year of my coming-of-age ceremony, Wu Jing sat perched on the wall of my palace, the silver bells on his sash jingling. With a blade of grass in his mouth, he said he wanted to take me riding, to teach me archery, and asked if I was willing. I was willing, of course I was willing. Unfortunately, to this day, I still haven't learned. Chen Yu. Wake up, don't you dare sleep, do you hear me? It's so noisy by my ear. My eyelids feel as heavy as lead. I can't open them, and I don't want to. Why won't they let me sleep? I'm so tired, so very tired. Your Majesty, if this slave dies, she dies. Why are you making such a fuss? Shen Wanner's head maid couldn't stand it anymore. You should know that pregnant women cannot be exposed to even a hint of blood. The Empress has been so frightened by this scene that her pregnancy is unstable. She needs someone by her side the most, yet there isn't even an imperial physician to take her pulse, Your Majesty. My drifting consciousness was yanked back. I remembered what year it was and where I was. The Qin kingdom had fallen, its name changed to Wu. Wu Jing's empress was Shen Wanner. So, whether I had married him or not, the result would have been the same. After the bloodbath in the palace, his subordinate had asked, "How should we deal with Princess Anning? Should we eliminate her to prevent future trouble?" Wu Jing had glanced at me, his expression cold and cruel. He could tame the fiercest of beasts. Was he afraid of a delicate princess rebelling? He said, keep her for now. If she's truly disobedient, then kill her. I finally understood that the hatred in Wu Jing's heart could never be erased. I should hate him too, but I had to admit it. He was a good emperor, capable of ruling the world. He had unified the lands, achieving something even my father emperor could not. When he forced me to serve him in bed, it wasn't that I hadn't thought of killing him in the process. But my hand, holding a hairpin, trembled as it neared his neck. Kill him, and then what? The world would fall into chaos, wars would ignite again, and the blood in Chang'an would never stop flowing. What was I supposed to do? I was in agony and numb. I was so close to being free, and he was still here, tormenting me. I silently urged him, go quickly. Your Wanner needs you. The sound of footsteps faded away. Wu Jing really left. He went to Shen Wanner's palace. The moment the woman saw him, joy lit up her face. Your Majesty, you've come. Is sister all right? It's all my fault for being so foolish, letting that unfeeling beast harm her. Even though I am with child, please punish me, Your Majesty. Shen Wanner said, about to kneel. She was certain that Wu Jing would help her up, just as he always did. Sure enough, the man raised his arm, his palm open toward her. Shen Wanner's lips curved slightly as she prepared to place her hand on his. But she was startled by a sudden question. The wolf tooth bracelet, where is it? Shen Wanner froze, instantly understanding why Wu Jing wanted it at this moment. She secretly gritted her teeth, but her face showed nothing. I've had the maids put it away in the storeroom. The new girls are clumsy. I'm afraid it will take a day or two to sort it out. If Your Majesty wants it, could you give this servant a little more time? Wu Jing's gaze turned cold. You can't find it. Which maid put it away? She can't even handle such a small task. Drag her out and have her beheaded. Shen Wanner's face paled, and the maids behind her trembled, falling to their knees. Your Majesty, quell your anger. Half an incense sticks time later. The wolf tooth bracelet that was supposedly impossible to find in a day or two was presented, intact, to Wu Jing. He glanced at Shen Wanner, leaving her with a cold warning. The Empress should manage her servants better. He left with a flick of his sleeves. I didn't expect Wu Jing to return. He sat by my bed and silently placed the bracelet back on my wrist. His movements were gentle, just like 10 years ago when he had first put it on for me. The familiar, exotic scent reached my nose, slightly easing the bone-deep pain. But it was all useless. In the entire Imperial Medical Academy, no one could cure me. They could only bandage my external wounds, stop the bleeding, and try every means to maintain the last, faint breath in my body. But they could never make me wake up. A bunch of fools. Wu Jing's furious roar seemed to be laced with a hint of desperation. Just then, a guard came in to report. Your Majesty, a shaman is seeking an audience outside the palace. He says. Wu Jing stood up eagerly. Says what? He says he is an old acquaintance of yours and Princess Anning. When the shaman arrived, he didn't even need to take my pulse. He glanced casually at the bed and said, she is already an empty shell. Wu Jing's face stiffened. For days, he had spent a fortune searching for famous doctors from all over the world. This shaman was his last hope. What do you mean? The shaman explained, the goo worms in her body have been gnawing at her for years. Her organs, not a single one has been spared. Actually, she didn't have to suffer so much. Did you often feed her extremely yang restorative medicines? Seeing Wu Jing clench his fists and nod silently, the shaman sighed and continued. And these goo worms are extremely yin creatures. Yin and yang, like ice and fire in the heavens, used her body as a vessel. The two forces tore at and tortured each other, which was naturally extremely agonizing for her. Wu Jing listened with his head down, somewhat dazed. No wonder I was always coughing up blood and clutching my chest in pain all these years. Yet he, more than once, had accused me of being delicate, of deliberately playing the victim in front of him. And he had forced so much of that self-righteous medicine down my throat. When he came back to his senses, his palm was bleeding from his clenched fist. Wu Jing kept his head down and asked in a hoarse voice, this strange illness of hers, where did these goo worms come from? The Xuniu forest, the shaman said. I fed them to her. Hearing the first 3 words, Wu Jing's eyes widened in shock. And as the second half of the sentence fell, a cold, metallic glint flashed. Wu Jing held a dagger, its tip pressed directly against the shaman's neck, his voice dangerous. You harmed her, and you still dare to appear before me. The shaman was unafraid, saying lightly, she ate them willingly. I didn't force her. Wu Jing clearly didn't believe him. The tip of the blade broke the skin, and a line of blood appeared. I know Qin Yu. She's so afraid of bitterness and pain, and she's terrified of insects. How could she possibly eat these harmful things willingly? The shaman laughed at this. You know her, then do you know how much she loves you? A tremor went through Wu Jing's eyes. Of course, he knew of my feelings for him. What does that have to do with anything? He asked, but the dagger in his hand was almost slipping from his grasp. The shaman noticed this detail and easily pushed the blade away from his throat with his hand. It seems you've guessed. She did it all to save you. The shaman told Wu Jing everything that had happened back then. The room was silent, there was no sound at all, but I felt something cold fall on my face, like a drop of water. Wu Jing was crying. He hadn't shed a tear even when he learned of his kinsmen's deaths, his eyes merely turning as red as blood. Now, why was he crying for me? Do you still have that pill? Wu Jing's voice was raw and ugly. Whatever the cost, you must save her. The shaman shook his head. She can't be saved. Once the goo worms enter the mouth, death is certain. As if possessed, Wu Jing brandished the dagger. But this time, he plunged it straight into his own palm. Blood pooled on the floor. The pain calmed him down. He took a deep breath. Then, is there any other way to make her wake up? The shaman gave him a type of medicine, which Wu Jing personally fed to me. During the long wait, he went to the cold palace where he had once imprisoned me. It was so cold, so gloomy, the air thick with the smell of decay. In a corner, he found a mountain of moldy letters. He belatedly realized that during every agonizing night in the cold palace, I had been biting my fingertips to write my last will and testament. I desperately wanted to die, but he used the bones of my family to threaten me, forcing me to live in excruciating pain. I had done nothing wrong. Being born into the imperial family was not my fault. My father emperor wanting to wage war was not my fault either. But he had inflicted all his resentment and hatred upon me. Wu Jing clutched his chest, feeling the sharp pain of the goo worm's bite. So this is how much it hurt. The shaman was no benevolent saint. As payment, he had Wu Jing test a new poison as well, not fatal, but it would torment him for life. I opened my eyes, and the first thing I saw was the man's haggard face. He had lost so much weight. He must have been having a nightmare. His brow was tightly furrowed. He was murmuring, "Anan, Anan." So he was dreaming of me. My expression was placid as I gazed at the canopy of the bedchamber. It looked familiar. It took me a long time to remember that this was my former princess's bedchamber. Perhaps sensing my movement, Wu Jing also opened his eyes and stared at me. 2 seconds later, he realized it wasn't a hallucination and excitedly grabbed my wrist. "Anan, you're awake." I couldn't break free, so I could only remind him in a faint voice. "Your Majesty, there is no Princess Anning in this world anymore, nor is there any Anan. I am Qin, a remnant of a fallen dynasty, a slave of the Wu kingdom." Our gazes met. Intense emotions churned in Wu Jing's eyes. After a long moment, he gave a self-deprecating laugh. "The king of Qin won. Marrying you to me, that was a brilliant move." A lump formed in Wu Jing's throat. He said, "I surrender. I admit I cannot bear the price of losing you. You are Anan, you will always be my Anan." This was the first time Wu Jing had shown his vulnerability in front of me, so openly admitting that he couldn't lose me. However, it was too late. From the day I fell in love with him, our fate was sealed. "Your Majesty," I began softly, telling him, "you may not believe this, but back then, I was the one who requested the decree, who insisted on marrying you." Wu Jing watched me in silence. The moment he turned his head away, I saw his eyes were red. "Don't call me your Majesty," Wu Jing said, his voice trembling, almost pleading with a humble tone. "Call me Ah Jing, like on the grasslands, or husband." "All right." I said nothing. He didn't move either, just waited at a standstill with me. I spoke, saying I wanted to go for a walk. He helped me up. I saw the withered yellow leaves outside in the courtyard, so I had been unconscious for that long. "Oh right, Anan, I forgot to tell you." Wu Jing turned his head and pointed in a certain direction. "I've moved our child into the imperial mausoleum." I saw immense grief on Wu Jing's profile. If he had been born safely, he would have been his eldest legitimate son, entitled to the honor of a crown prince, not just a handful of yellow earth and white bones. At this moment, he was not the untamable wolf king of the grasslands, not the monarch who had unified the world. He seemed to be just an ordinary father who had lost his child. Wu Jing said to me, "You should choose our child's name." I answered almost without hesitation, "Let's call him Yanking. For a peaceful world, a prosperous and tranquil era. That would be good enough." The Shen family was suddenly thrown into the imperial prison. Shen Wanner knelt at Wu Jing's feet, kowtowing until her head was bleeding, but it did not soften the man's heart. "Why, your majesty, what have my father and brother done to offend you? Have you forgotten? They were the ones who opened the city gates, who welcomed the Zizhu beast soldiers into Chang'an. And I am still carrying your child in my belly." Wu Jing's expression was ruthless, as he forced a bowl of strong abortifacient down Shen Wanner's throat. He showed not a shred of mercy. "Did you think that my not coming to settle accounts with you all this time meant I didn't know about the things you did behind my back?" Shen Wanner collapsed on the floor, her face contorted in pain. "You knew, it's good that you know. It saves me from being terrified every night." Wu Jing had her dragged away, to be made a camp follower for the army. The rest of the Shen family were all beheaded. When he told me this news, I was sitting under the peach blossom tree. Wu Jing's expression changed, and he brushed the vibrant petals from my shoulder. "Anan, you can't touch these." I looked at his anxious face and said, "It doesn't matter anymore." Lately, I had been constantly recalling things from the past. Years ago, I had seen Wu Jing practicing his sword under a peach blossom tree, kicking up a shower of petals. He noticed me watching from a distance, raised an eyebrow, and beckoned me over. I knew the peach blossoms were dangerous, but I approached anyway. One wrong step, and every step after was wrong. A montage of my life seemed to flash before my eyes. I knew my body was an oil lamp that had run out of fuel. I heard that the court had been in turmoil recently. Wu Jing had been staying by my side almost day and night, and hadn't attended court or handled state affairs for a long time. I also heard that the common people were full of grievances, with countless floods and plagues, and that a rebel army had broken into the imperial city. The leader was a young man, barely of age. His surname, it seemed, was Qin. Wu Jing never came to see me again. This time, I closed my eyes forever. The end.